Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Creemee Cast Friday at 4. I'm here with Guy Page of the Vermont Daily Chronicle, and of course, welcome to VDCTV. How are you doing today, Guy?
Pretty good, Paul. So everyone, welcome to another episode of Friday at 4, the weekly news program of VDCTV. I'm Guy Page, as Paul has just said, editor of the Vermont Daily Chronicle. Today, you will hear about the latest on the unprecedented property tax revolt going on right now in towns across Vermont, and what Montpelier is and isn't doing about it, and what some state leaders are saying you can do. We invite you to join the chat on our Vermont Daily Chronicle YouTube page. We'll read your comments and respond. And if you can't hear us, tell us. Production is a work in progress.
Thank you for that.
Well, it is.
It is.
Finally, please like this broadcast and subscribe on our YouTube page. It does us a lot of good. Please do that. But first, a news exclusive about a shocking display of suppression of religious free speech on the grounds of the Vermont State House. Last Saturday, about 20 Vermonters gathered on the State House lawn, heeding the call of a group called Don't Mess With Our Kids. This national group, concerned about growing trends in trans programming and teenage abortion, wanted a prayer presence at every state capitol. Someone who was there told me, and I'm starting to quote here, there were about 20 of us that gathered on the State House lawn and sidewalk to worship and then pray for the children and families of Vermont and the nation. With our permit in hand, we were not expecting any issues other than the chance of rain. Just as we were beginning, a group of people began arriving. As our worship leader began playing, the group, continuing to grow in size, began banging on pans, blowing whistles, and using a bullhorn and white noise devices. They pushed their way into our group on the steps and tried to drown out our worship music. A few of them released piercing noise into the ears of several people who were surrounding the young lady playing her guitar. We continued to stand our ground without reacting to the other group's bullying tactics towards us. Within about 15 minutes of our starting, the other group was at least double our size, and were doing everything possible to get us to shut down and leave. Eventually, with support too little and too late from the Montpelier police, despite having a crowd permit, the prayer group left. So, why does this matter? Because don't opponents have the right to counter-protest on a public area like the State House lawns? Well, maybe, but here's the problem. When shout-downs happen, which is exactly what this was, the minority shuts up in fear, and they know this. The other side, the shouters, know this. At Stanford, for example, very recently, a federal judge was shouted down in a speech. A free speech group polled students at Stanford before and after. And the difference in the responses between the conservative students surveyed before and after the shutdown are stark. Conservative Stanford students were less comfortable after the shutdown than before the shutdown, expressing their views on a controversial political topic in the classroom, in a common campus space, and in a written assignment. Conservative students also self-censored more often after the shoutdown than before the shoutdown. And they said that they are more worried about damaging their reputation because of someone misunderstanding something they've said or done. So, do we want a Vermont where people can speak, can pray publicly without fear of physical pain, without fear of shame? Well, clearly some people don't. So that's our exclusive news. And I hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it's really quite something. When you told me about that last week, I mean, I don't know if shocked is the right word, but I was definitely a bit surprised. But it just seems as time goes on, as one might say, things are becoming more and more in your face, and we're gonna really show you that we don't want to hear what you have to say, especially from any place of opposition. And I just can't imagine being one of those people who's, you're there peacefully praying,
right,
and then you're being shouted at. It just seems like really kind of unbelievable.
Right. There was a Back the Blue, not even a demonstration, just a gathering on the State House lawn in July of 2021. Same thing happened. In fact, it was kind of the Antifa people, and they showed up in their black gear and running around with cameras, trying to catch people saying things. And the really sad thing about it was that after a half an hour of not being able to hear ourselves speak, because I was one of the speakers there, literally we're not allowed to speak, no one still knows who it was. It wasn't anyone who was sort of part of our group, said something that was kind of racist, and of course the cameras were there.
Sure.
They picked it up, and nationally, Vermont was all these terrible people, these terrible racists gathering on the State House lawn. Governor Scott even made a comment about, well, we just can't have that here. And that didn't happen at all. I was there, and it didn't happen. And it really, very disturbing. When you see in the Vermont media and in the national media, when you were there and you know what happened, but there's a whole nother story, you start thinking, wow, that's there's something funny here. So, back to our top story, Paul.
Yeah.
This year's unprecedented, snowballing property tax revolt.
Yes.
I've been, as I keep reminding people, a reporter here since 1979, and every year maybe there's a few budgets that get voted down.
Sure.
Once in a great while, some recalcitrant district says, oh, we're going to vote it down twice.
Sure.
Well, 30 school budgets voted it down this year. There have been 14 revotes. 11 of those 14 have voted no. You have a double-digit, two-time no votes on school budgets. And in a lot of these districts, it's not even close.
Well, it's pretty incredible to think, there's this many school budgets getting voted down. And I know I've seen some people talking online saying, it's not quite a taxpayers' revolt. It's just 1/3 of the school budgets.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, as if 1/3 of the school budget isn't,
right.
School budgets in the state isn't a significant amount. I mean, that's more than ever before, right? So I think that should be acknowledged and taken seriously, that the taxpayer is very, very unhappy right now. It's not universal, obviously, but that's still a significant amount.
Right. So, folks, if you have any comments on this, on the property tax revolt and what's going on in Montpelier and what's going on in our local schools, please feel free to chat, feel free to comment. This is a two-way conversation we're having here.
So I have a chat here from DTK Trucker. Hello from the new WCRC chair, which I assume means Washington County Republicans.
Oh, yes. I think that's Don Koch, I think.
Donald Koch. That
yes.
would make sense. Yeah,
yes.
The trucker. Yeah, okay. Hey, Donald, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us today here at Creemee Cast. You're going to see very soon, by the way, why we're calling it that. He's one of the people that's been wondering, why are you calling it that? So we have Libby Moyer. She writes, the no vote.
So what does Donald say first? I want to be able to respond to what people.
He just said hello. He just said hello.
Well,
he said hello,
Don.
And I hear you.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And, sorry, what was Libby saying?
Libby said, let's see, she first writes the no vote, so the double no. And then she writes, there is one fund, subtract 1/3 of the money. What do you have? Do you understand that? There is one fund,
The education fund.
subtract 1/3 of the money. What do you have?
Ooh, boy.
Oh, I see what she's asking. Yeah, 1/3 of the entire education fund. So
Right.
that's probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, easily. I believe they're up to school funding anyway this year was, it went up, it's gone up in the last, it's gone up $800 million in the last 8 years, I believe, or last 10 years, I think it is. In about a decade, it's gone up about $800 million.
So $100 million a year.
Enrollment. Well, I guess more or less, kind of. But Libby, you're raising a good point, which is what can be done to reduce spending. Well, I have two things to say about that, Libby. The first is that right now, Montpelier isn't thinking about cutting spending at all. At least they're not demonstrably showing it. The day after Super Tuesday, which is what my name for when you have 8 school budgets revoted and 6 get voted down, the day after that, the House Ways and Means Committee, which is the tax committee, comes out with a plan. And they said, we recognize there's a $200 million shortfall in our spending, in our revenue, and we are going to create not one new tax, but 2 new taxes, a new category of taxes. And we're going to increase property taxes 15%. So instead of the 20% we were looking at, it's now down to 15%. This is their property tax relief, I guess, that they're talking about it for homeowners, and for renters and business owners, or rather apartment owners and business owners, it'll be 18% property tax increase. So you're looking at a reduction in the property tax increase from 20 to 15, roughly. It'll vary somewhat with each district. And you're looking at creating a tax on the cloud, which is, if you have for example, we use MailChimp and WordPress here to get the Chronicle out, and we pay a certain amount every month. We do not pay a tax on those, but we will if this passes, and so will you. If you subscribe to anything or you buy anything, whatever, there will be a tax associated with that. And so it's opening up a whole new category of taxation for Montpelier to go wild after.
No.
Yes.
Not the state legislature in Vermont. Are you serious?
Right. And the other one is on short-term rentals, which is if you have ever rented an Airbnb somewhere.
Yep.
There will be I believe it's 1.5%, I'm thinking, tax on Airbnbs.
Bill Huff writes a very funny comment. He writes, tax on streaming too, right? Question mark. Tax my TV. And, Bill, I think he must be referring to streaming as in streaming Netflix or streaming Hulu, not what you and I are doing right now.
Maybe both, but yes.
Maybe, probably both. They would love to tax what we're doing, wouldn't they, Guy?
Indeed.
It's too cheap, free, and fun.
Right.
Well, anyway, Caleb Morvan writes, should the older generation that has already put kids through the school system, get a tax break? What do you think of that, Guy?
I think it's not about to happen. There's always been this idea that everyone benefits by public education, and that's true. That if you have people who are, being educated, everyone benefits. And when we had our children in the school system, we benefited a lot, and now we're paying on the other end of that. Now, but where that falls down, though, is that you're looking at 20% for a increase in property taxes on an ever declining enrollment. It's gone down. And not only is it going down, but the number of students who are actually there in school, absenteeism has gone up from an average of about 11% before the pandemic to now it's about, according to one Vermont Agency of Education study, about 29%. So even the students who are enrolled, there's a huge absenteeism number now that they're not there. So we're not really getting our buck, the bang for our buck out of that. So it raises the question, and so nothing in this bill that House Ways and Means passed, which will be going to the House floor next week, probably on Tuesday. And this is important because the weekend is coming up. Nothing in this bill addresses cost containment, cutting spending, anything like that. An earlier version of the bill did. An earlier version
That's right.
had a midterm and a long-term plan.
Didn't it have tripartisan support too?
I believe it did.
Yeah, that's right.
The Republicans were for it. And they said, we were willing to kind of hold our nose and vote for the tax increases as long as we could look at a long-term tax spending containment. Well, the last version that the Ways and Means Committee voted on didn't have that in there. They took that out. They took out the cost containment. And that's just kind of, it honestly reflects the mentality in the Vermont State House where the idea of cutting spending, we don't want to cut spending. so we don't. So at the press conference, the Republican press conference yesterday, I asked the all 29 Republicans who were there, I said, where could we cut? How could you cut education spending and maybe spending in general to rather than just instead of raising it all in the property tax, adding whole new forms of taxation and still having a huge property tax increase. And the first thing that they all agreed on, or at least everyone who spoke up, was right now we're spending $30 million a year in a universal school meals. And that's coming, I believe, right out of the general fund. It's all state dollars, $30 million. And we could cut that. That was a pandemic era federal funding thing. And we could cut that out completely and still go back to the previous plan of free and reduced meals for low-income children that was all federally funded.
The people that need it.
Right. Instead of literally everyone going to school gets a free breakfast and a free lunch, even though you don't really need it, you don't really want it. This would be really only the kids who their parents say, yeah, actually that would be really good.
Let's just clarify, though, for people that don't know anything about this. So what you're saying is I don't know, maybe somewhat affluent kid who goes to a private school up in Chittenden County. Actually, I guess it wouldn't be a private school.
Public school.
Public school, okay. But somewhat affluent kid, parents make pretty good money, doing all right. That kid gets a free meal too?
Yes, he does. It's universal. It's every child.
It seems like a way for people to just depend on the government to take care of their child's lunch as opposed to themselves.
Yes, and most parents would say, actually, no, I would really rather not have to pay for that. At least a lot of parents, but they don't really have the option. It's paid.
So Bill Huff writes, it's not part of the general fund, it's Ed Fund, the education fund.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Yeah, but still, it's our tax dollars. It's not a federal funded thing. It's state revenue. Good, thank you for straightening me out on that, Mr. Get Real.
Mr. Get Real.
Which, by the way, Bill, just this morning I was thinking that I wonder if you should have a song. You should have someone dressed up as a highway flagman and as a graduate and as a cop, and they could all do a song and dance called Get Real Vermont. Get Real Vermont.
Guy, where did you come up with that idea?
I have no clue. I think I remember seeing the Village People or someone jumping around in construction outfits and police singing the YMCA song, and thinking, That'd be kind of fun. No, I guess not.
You know what, Guy? You just now he's going to ask us to do it. Now he's going to say, Paul, Guy, you guys mind dressing up?
Okay, I will do the melody if you can handle the harmony, Paul.
I can sing.
Okay, I know you can.
Yeah. Bill says maybe an Indian too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you didn't mention that. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Caleb Morvan writes, they don't care how much money they spend. It's not their money they're spending. LOL.
Well, I'm not sure if laugh out loud. I think lament out loud is more like that, because there's more truth to that than you know. I was speaking with Randy Brock, the very fiscally smart, savvy senator from Franklin County, and I said, explain to me, please, Randy, the mindset of the tax and spend legislature. How do they justify this, knowing all that's going on? And they said, look, Guy, he said, they see their job as budgeting everything that people want and need, and making sure that people have all the programs and all the everything, that so that there's no pain, there's no suffering, everyone gets what they believe they want and need. And it's the job of the rich people and the corporations to pay. And so they're not really all that worried about the whole tax end, because that is someone else's problem. That's not their problem.
There's always enough money. There's always enough money, isn't there?
Apparently so. And I do think they are starting to sort of hit the wall of reality on that, though. And so it leads to the question, first of all, where can they cut spending? And one thing is universal school meals. Another is it's just $1 million. But, hey, $1 million is still $1 million.
Yeah.
If you're trying to cut out of 200. There's something called the Community Schools Program, which basically tries to expand public school access to social services and try to make the school sort of a hub of all sorts of social organizations.
Yep.
And that's $1 million. And yeah, we could probably cut that out. Representative Casey Toof suggested from St. Albans. Also, there's a former representative named Larry Coopoli from Rutland, who for years has been saying we can save a ton of money if the whole state of Vermont becomes one school district. One school district, Vermont, not the 100 or so, 112 I think there are, something like that now.
I don't know the exact number, but yeah. I think you're close.
It's huge. And of course, a lot of the spending, the non-classroom spending, is at the supervisory union level. I was looking at Barry's school spending, and they're at the supervisory level. They have 6 IT people working for just in the superintendent's office. Really? You need 6 IT people? But apparently they do.
Must be a large administration they have over there.
I guess so.
So we have people writing like crazy. We absolutely love it. Just so you guys know, this is what it's. Keep it coming. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So here's what Bill Huff writes. Bill writes, ask Guy about summertime EBT cards for children. School meals are not just during school. Parents get EBT cards for the summer meals.
That has definitely happened. I'm still trying to figure out how much, but I did get some confirmation from the state agency that was doing that. That's a thing.
Stephen Thurston writes, FCOL for crying out loud. That's a good one.
That's good, Steve.
We like the acronyms. Don't leave us guessing. Please keep it so we know what it means. Thomas Koch writes, thank you, Tom, for tuning in. Not too long from now, the state will take our children shortly after birth, raise them as they choose, and bring them back at age 18 and say, hey, here, mother, meet your child.
Oh, let's hope not.
I hope you're wrong, Tom.
Hey, Steve, if there's an acronym here that needs spelling out, please let me know. I'll try to be more sensitive to that. There's another thing that that they talked about, the legislature, Republicans talked about, was Vermont right now has a 4.4 to 1 student to staff ratio. 4.4 students for every 1 school staff member. And that includes, I believe, the supervisory people. That is the highest in the nation. And Scott Beck was saying, as long as that's there, there's no way we're going to control costs. As long as we still seem to have this idea that you need to have 4.5, one staff member for every 4.5 students. So those are 4 ideas. And so I also asked Representative Beck, what should concerned Vermonters do? And he said, about this H877, this new funding plan that's going to be voted on Tuesday, he said, it's real simple. He said, contact your legislators. Tell them what you want. And if you want them to cut spending, you should tell them, cut school spending, and here's some ways to do it. If you want them to not tax as much, tell them that, no, actually, I don't want all of those taxes. Because this is a situation where a very important vote is going to be happening on Tuesday. It's going to affect your property taxes. And as Vermonters, we have the right to speak up and to say what we like.
Now, Guy, I believe you asked the governor on Wednesday if his team, his administration was looking for ways that they could possibly say, well, this is a good way we can cut spending. I don't think you really got that good of an answer, if I remember correctly, or maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
The one thing that he mentioned, which apparently his tax commissioner raised, is some plan to defer payment to do the spending now and defer the payment, which I guess has been explored in the past, and the real concern there is that it would hurt the state's bond rating.
That's right.
And the governor and someone raised that and said, well, you don't want to wreck our bond rating, do you? And he said, no, of course I don't. But let's look at the cost of hurting the bond rating versus the cost of a 15 or 20% property tax increase. Which hurt is worse?
Sure.
And so there are people who are sort of looking at that. I'm not sure that that's got an awful lot of legs. But what it does tell you, though, Paul, is that we're in a situation where our fiscally frugal governor is saying, gee, maybe we ought to look at deferring our tax payments for a year because the situation's so bad. And if you don't like it, come up with a better idea.
Well, I guess that's what I've been trying to get to the bottom of as a young lad who hasn't really seen anything like this in my life. And I know you haven't seen a lot of this either, but I guess what I'm wondering, it's like when school budgets fail, okay, well then what happens after that? And then, like, if the financial situation is so bad, and what does it look like? Like, what are we doing that we've never done before? And when you're mentioning, we're talking about deferring tax payments to the federal government, that's pretty, that's something I never even knew was a possibility. I didn't know that was a thing. It's and I'm wondering, we keep talking about this tax revolt. Okay, what more is there to this? What are going to be the externalities of all these different things that we've been talking about, like the school budgets and the tax deferment?
Right. Well, that's maybe questions for a show for another day.
Yeah, definitely.
So we are about to wrap up our 4th episode?
Yeah, I think it is.
Amazing.
I know, it goes by so fast.
Of Friday at 4. Hope you've enjoyed the show. And we'll see you next Friday at 4. And please remember to like and subscribe this program.
Like and subscribe.